Encouraging neurodiversity in the workplace has enormous organizational benefits. We speak about much higher creativity in the team, innovation, clear structure and routines in your organizations, and also broader market for your products and services. But how to deal with neurodiversity in practice? How to attract and retain neurodiverse talents? How to create a safe place for them in your organization? To answer all those questions, I invited today a person who speaks from her own experience. She is neurodiverse, she has autism, and her name is Nadin Csépke. She's a Hungarian 27-year-old psychology student and also artist. So Nadine speaks both from her own experience as autistic person, but also as psychologist, as a professional. So it's a unique combination and it will help us to understand neurodiversity much, much better. And also how to work with it as employees, especially if you don't have, like me, if you don't have the whole group of HR and specialists in the team who help you, but if you recruit like myself, by myself, and also working with working environment also by yourself as a small business owner, this podcast is invaluable for you. So I'm Evgenia, founder of Spotlight How Diversity and Inclusion Agency and educational platform. And if you like the content I'm creating for you, then please like, share, and comment this podcast. Your support means a lot to me. Thank you very much. Hello, Nadine, and very welcome to Spotlight How podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Hello
And
everyone. I'm really glad I could be here. And my name is Nadine and I'm from Hungary. I am a 27-year-old artist and psychology student, but also a teacher, and I do many kinds of art. Yes, so basically that's me. Oh, and also I'm autistic.
yes, and you're a poet because you will publish your
Yeah,
first.
poet, makeup artist, I do many things when it comes to art.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're very.
I'm a huge artist with capitals.
Yeah, and it's the thing is that what amazes me with you that you combine this two different subjects. You have two different passions, which are different, but they kind of make sense when you combine them: psychology and art. So you
Yeah,
do both, and why this choice? Is it something? What makes you to choose these two areas to work with?
oh, it's a long story when it comes to art because I started to write when I was 8 years old. I have always made these stories in my head since
Mm,
like age 5 or I don't know.
mm,
These stories in my head, they were always there, and I started to write them when I was at the age of 8, and I started to draw them when I was at the age of like 12 because I saw a girl on the internet and she drew her characters and stories, and I was
mm,
so inspired, so I decided to learn art by myself.
mm,
And yeah, I was planning to study law at university, but at the age of 18, somehow I managed to go to an open day at the art university. And I clearly remember stepping into this room full of artists drawing their characters and stories. And I just was, what is this class like? What is this? And the teacher said, oh, it's animation filmmaking. And oh my god, I went home and I told my parents that I will be an animation filmmaker because it just combines writing and drawing. And I felt that moment that I need to be an animation artist. So I went to animation university a year later because I needed to prep myself because I have never taught art. I am a self-taught artist. Yes, so a year later I went to art school I did the bachelor's and the master's. I made my diploma project, which is a film about my autistic traumas. And then when it came to psychology, I was always interested in psychopathology, like these mental disorders and the deep
Mm.
stuff. But I got my autism diagnosis at the age of 23, and
Mm.
I was so raged because nobody realized that I could be autistic. And here
Mm.
it's hard to get a diagnosis when it comes to autism, and very few doctors can realize that you have autism. And I
Mm.
just wanted to be a person to diagnose autism. Of course, I won't be a psychiatrist, but a psychologist, but I can learn the method to diagnose autistics, and the psychiatrist can put the code on the paper.
Mm.
And I went to different therapies, and the psychologist just didn't understand me at all because my brain is wired differently. And
Mm.
for example, when it comes, I have like 11 types of food which I eat, and I have this specific kind of cheese which I eat. And for example, when I go to a psychiatrist and tell him or her that, oh my God, there wasn't my kind of cheese in the shop, she just looks at me and like, and why is that a problem? And for me, it's a huge problem because I can be so depressed. And when it comes to me as a psychologist, and for example, an autistic person would be sitting in front of me telling me this story, I would understand them. And that's the difference, because
Mm.
I can understand the neurodivergent brains, but the simple psychologist can't. So I decided to be a psychologist to understand others and help others, because for me, almost nobody could help when it comes to therapy, and that's really sad.
Is it still like that? That you are going to psychologists? Is it still like that? That you feel that none can really understand you, or you were lucky to meet someone who could in this world?
I wish I could meet someone who would understand, but I wanted myself to be the person who understands others. Like, I can do my own therapy now. I have the
Mhm.
knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it would be great, but I can live with it.
yeah, yes, I understand. It was very good. How you described with the cheese, because it's but what is interesting, if you're a psychologist, you need to at least be open how people experience things differently, at least to not, you are not expecting to understand, but to understand that it is important to you, even if you don't feel it yourself. I think this could be taught to normal, like to psychologists who are not having this like feel, they don't know how it is in reality. uh,
And autism is a spectrum disorder, so it's like a huge variety of people. Like, there's no two kind of autistic people who are the same. Like, everyone's really, really different, but we have these common wiring.
mm,
So when it comes to neurotypical people, they are also different, but our brains are different, but like biologically, our brains are different. So uh, I really should work with only neurodivergent people, because I could only understand them, in my opinion.
mm. Yeah. So what was that moment when you, because you said that you were aged, that nobody thought about it earlier, that you are autistic. So what exactly, first of all, why did you even go and checked if nobody understood how it's happened? And what did you feel exactly that day, apart from rage? Did you feel relieved or not when you
Yeah,
got your diagnosis?
it's a happy and a sad story at the same time, because when I was a high schooler, a school psychologist said to me that you are really weird, and I decided I will never ever go to a psychologist again. But
Mhm.
my grandmother sadly died, and I developed the panic disorders. It was so bad that I couldn't leave the house later. Um, and yeah, I needed to realize that I need help, a professional help. And I went to a psychiatrist uh, with a 12 page long paper, and I wrote down my symptoms in groups, like, I don't
Mhm.
know, like emotional problems and stuff like that. So I wrote down my problems like that. And the psychiatrist immediately said something's not right here, because I wasn't speaking, but I just gave her the paper and that's all. And and she said something's not right here, and she sent me to a clinical psychologist, and they did some tests, and they wrote on my paper that I might be autistic. And in that
Mhm.
moment, I felt really, really relieved, because it was just like this light bulb just in
Mhm.
my head that, oh my God, that's the reason why I have felt this way all my life. Like, I felt like an alien, an outcast, and I couldn't even tell. Like, I always was like that. Is the society, like, it's the group in the high school, and we have different interests, and that's why I don't fit in. But in the art school, they are just not as serious than me, so that's why I don't fit in. But these were just excuses for me to somehow make myself feel better. But I needed to realize that they are not the problem. It's me who is the problem. And in that moment, when I got my not my diagnosis, but this suggestion that I might be autistic, I was like crying from happiness, and went home with a huge smile that there's a community where I belong, and I am not a failure, I'm not a monster. But I needed an official diagnosis, because I wanted to
Mhm.
know, like, is it real, or is it just my imagination and the idea of the doctors? So
Mhm.
I needed to check, but the waiting list here is really, really long, like 2 or 3 years, and there's only one place in the whole country where you can diagnose yourself free. And yes, so I got an appointment 1.5 year later, but I needed to get a diagnosis sooner because of my panic disorder, because I
Mhm.
needed a special psychologist. And luckily, and also you can get extra points for university, and I was applying for psychology university, and I needed the extra points from the diagnosis. Yeah, so luckily they could put me on the waiting list for I needed to wait like half a year. So I was at the beginning of the waiting list after we talked to them about my problems and about the university point. um, yeah, and it was a half year examination. Like, I had like 4 appointments. They needed to talk to my mother and me, and I needed to do some tests and stuff like that. It was a long test. We call it a longitudinal test, because it's for the examining the whole life. And I was so nervous, because I have already started my film at that time, and I was so nervous, because what if I'm not autistic, and then making this film about autism, and what if I'm not? But that was not the case, because they said it's so obvious, you are autistic, it's very obvious. So that wasn't the case, and I was so relieved, because yes, so I was officially diagnosed at the age of 23, but I got the suggestion that I might be autistic at the age of 22. And yes, so I finished my film, luckily, with my diagnosis in hand. and that was so awesome. And I actually find the autistic community in Hungary, an
Mm.
autistic adult community, and they are so awesome. Like finally, I can be understood, and that's so awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
this
that's my story actually.
it's beautiful, your story, sad as you said, but also beautiful. And this belonging, this feeling of that you are not belonging anywhere, I feel it's very common for all identities. If you talk about identities protected by the law, people who are different, we can say in a way, like being different at your ethnicity, of your sexual preference, or of
Yeah.
your of neurodiversity, like the same what unites all them. And I can say it as being a migrant woman in another country, is that this feeling of belonging in such a relief when you find people who are like you, who can understand. But also, when I can imagine that when you got this diagnosis, it was even easier in the context of outside of your community, because you could.
Yes.
Did it help you how somehow to communicate better, to feel better with people, like with your co-students or your family or friends, like outside of autistic community, or you felt that nothing changed there when you got
Uh,
diagnosis?
it actually changed because I am pretty open with my diagnosis. So before my diagnosis, like others felt that something's not right here and something's weird. And now I can say, yeah, because I'm autistic. But
Mm,
there's sometimes when I have this argument with others, like, you are so weird. Yeah, yes, because I'm autistic. But the other said, no, you cannot be because you are just too normal. And but you are weird at the same time, and this is crazy. So there's people like that, but also there's understanding people who understand, and I'm pretty open. I have struggles because in the everydays I can have struggles like in shops, and when like a vendor came to me and said to me like, you are doing this wrong, what is wrong with you? I can't say that I'm autistic because I just freeze. So I should
mm,
say actually, because maybe that would change the situation. But when it came to connections like classmates, coworkers, I always tell them I'm autistic. So if
mm,
I do anything weird, they can just say, "Yeah, that's an autistic person. That might be
mm,
because of it." Like I don't explain everything. Like, yeah, I'm autistic, so I hear the noises louder, or I don't like small talk. I don't explain this. I
mm.
just tell them I'm autistic, and I hope they understand when it comes to something weirdness. They think that this is because of autism, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because if you're a migrant like me, this is your identity. Actually, you don't need to explain anything because I have this accent and it shows itself.
Yeah.
So people might have understanding if I don't know something about the Swedish context, or like, but if you're autistic, then it's good, like then you mention it, because like it's not written, like it's not as easily identifiable like ethnic,
Yeah, it's a
different ethnic
hidden disability actually.
mm.
And there's this sunflower thing which you can put on yourself,
Ah.
and says that I'm autistic or I have hidden disabilities. And it's not in every country, sadly. Hungary just started to sell them,
Mm,
luckily, and it's a way to express that you are disabled, but it's a hidden disability, like chronic illness or visual impairment, because yeah, people can see these things. Like I have like so many chronic illnesses as well, and
mm.
people are mad at me when I sit on the disabled chairs on the bus, or something like that. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and it's good maybe to have sunflower in case someone crazy, like, why are you sitting here, like you are taking this chair from older people or from pregnant women
Yeah,
or whatever. So you don't need to maybe explain every time. It's good to actually have this sunflower to skip the conversations. I can
yes,
imagine.
yes. I actually have a card which says that I'm autistic, and sometimes I show people because sometimes people say that I'm a fake and I can be autistic because
Mhm.
look how I speak and how I look, and I can be autistic. And I just show them the card, and once a person ran away actually, and it was really funny. Yeah, so there can be crazy people, and even when it comes to my interviews, I see so many hate comments uh, that I am a fraud and I
Mm.
am a fake and I can be autistic, and there's this because I'm not like a 6-year-old intellectually disabled autistic boy,
Mm.
and it's different. So the it's a huge difference because autism often comes with intellectual disability, but not always. And people always confuse autism with intellectual disability, and that's a huge mistake. And media and news always present autism with intellectual disability, and I just hate that because that's not the case.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important in the area where I operate, workplaces, to exactly teach employers what is autism and also all other identities, because as you say, it's still so low awareness what it is. So people like don't, sometimes I get even questions like, but how can we employ autistic people, can they work? And I'm like, of course they can work. Like, look at you, you
Yeah,
have this, all these educations, you're writing poems, you're creating books, of course they can work. But people honestly don't know what it is, and that's why it's so much more difficult for people with autism or for blind people or for people with hearing impairment to get
yes,
jobs,
actually,
because employers don't know how to deal. It's not like most of the people are not mean, but they don't understand what it is. So it's so good that you explain it. And in this context, it's interesting to know, how does it influence your autism, you as a worker, a co-worker? How do you feel yourself? How are you different from other colleagues, or how are you similar to other colleagues? It's like to describe.
well, first I'm pretty lucky because I work at a private school, and they have many disabled students, and that's easier because like the headmaster understand me really well. And for example, when I started to work, it was really hard for me to get used to it. And I had several panic attacks, or I just, the day before work, I just said I can't do it. And I was crying because it was so exhausting to me to adapt
Mm.
for this new situation because it's a changing routine. And autistics are really routine based, like they like their routines. And I wasn't working before, so I had really really bad moments, and the headmaster understood that I can't go in. And I'm pretty ashamed of that because the students couldn't learn, and I was missing a lot from school. But I needed that half year to somehow adapt to work. And now in the next year, I'm pretty much adapted and I don't miss work a lot. Of course, when I have exams or something like that, I am missing school. But all in all, I managed to adapt to the situation. I don't like small talks. Like small talks is my enemy. Like I can't just sit and talk about, I don't know, the weather is like that, or children. I just can't do that. It's either deep philosophical thoughts or nothing. So I basically sat there in my free time, talk to nobody, and it took me like 1 year to finally manage to somehow talk to others a little bit and get to know others a little bit. It's also it's also another problem that I have dysfunctional working memory, which is usually autistic people have this disability in the working memory, which causes me to like getting more tired and can't remember names. But I also have prosopagnosia, which comes with autism as well. It means that it means face blindness, like you can't recognize faces. So I have problems with names and faces as well. So it was so hard for me to somehow recognize the people. Like it took me one whole year, and even for students, like I always needed to ask the names, and it was so embarrassing, actually. Yeah, but now I managed to recognize people and remember their names, and it's better now. I think my teaching method is different from others as well, because I feel deep connection with my students, like a friendly connection, but also I am not their friend, but like their idol or something. Like I show them examples, but I see them as my future coworkers. So it's an art school, and I am an artist. They are artists, and once they will be like a professional artist like me. So I view them future coworkers, not just this hierarchical thing like a teacher and students.
Mm.
I see them as people, like human beings, and when someone says that, oh my god, my head aches, or I have a stomach problem, or I just had a really depressing week, I can understand that, and they can communicate with me as a friend, but I am not their friend, so I am a strict teacher, actually. Yeah,
Mm.
but I don't know how others do this, because I have never taught about teaching. So I am a self-taught teacher, but others attended a like teacher university, and they were learning this for like
Mm.
6 years or something. So I don't know how I am different from others, but I'm pretty sure I'm really really different from others. It's a small school, a really, really small school. So other teachers are also close to their students. Like I see teachers hugging their students, and it's really great, because it's not that
Mm.
rigid, strict school, or it's not that cold place where you go and you hate it and
Yeah.
you just want to go home. Yeah, so that's basically how you work. And uh, I just like to work alone, actually. Like I am not a social creature when it comes to work.
Mm. That's why you're artist. Artists are usually lonely people. They create a loneliness, but at the same time, for me, you sound like my role model teacher who has these
Oh, thank you.
boundaries, who is so deep and philosophical, and who takes what is most important. And how I raise my kids is this: to be on equal terms, that you look at them as individuals, and respect what they say, and really listen. So it feels like these are your strong qualities, and it's not as a matter of, it's not that given in the teaching world that teachers have this quality. So for me, I really would love to you to be my teacher, because it feels like you
Oh,
have
thank
all
you
this
so much.
quality I feel teachers should have, and parents should have, towards their children.
Yeah,
To
I,
be
I can actually see how psychology university improved my skills as a
Mhm.
teacher. So I really see that, actually. And of course, my artistic abilities, because I always like to help others when it came to art, and just teach people stuff when they ask for it, and help others, because I can be very critical, but rational at the same time. Yeah.
I mean, it's not bad to have boundaries and to be critical. It's like just when you have criticism with with the good intentions, and it's not
Yeah,
that you're critical, it's how you show your criticism. It's if it's with love and care, it's okay. Boundaries are good and it's gross, but the question
yeah,
is how it's mm,
yeah. I
shown.
always critique others with a a good intention. Like I don't want to hurt them. I just want them to improve.
Yeah.
And I always try to see the good in others, and it was really hard for me to learn that say the good things as well. It's just not enough if I think about it, say it because the others won't be as hurt or something. Yeah.
It's important skill for actually in life in general. Don't forget to
Yes,
say good
yes.
things, not
But
only
I
say.
really needed to learn that because when I was a teenager, I just couldn't do that for some reason. Yeah, I needed to learn that.
It's good you have learned it, and it's like if you understand, like if you the skill is a skill, it can be acquired as soon as you know this is what I need, this is what I lack, and I need to learn. It's exactly like small talks, even if you are not good at them, but you can eventually learn, and if there is a situation, you can maybe have a small
Yeah,
talk even though you
actually,
hate
when
it.
it comes to small talks, you can learn it, but it's very tiring for an autistic person. Like it doesn't come naturally. It's like you need to learn a script and use the script, and we call this masking. I don't know if you have heard about it, the autistic masking. It's like imagine it. You learn about autism and you read all the books about autism, and one day you decide that, huh, I will pretend that I'm autistic, and
Mhm.
it's so hard and tiring because in every moment you need to think through your actions, your sentences, and your doings and everything. And
Mm.
masking is the same, but for autistics, you need to learn how to be a neurotypical person, and you need to be aware of everything you say, everything you do. So it's really, really harmful and tiring, and people shouldn't do that because people should be themselves. So it's really harmful and it's really hard to unlearn because most autistic do the masking because they just need to somehow fit in. So when autistic do these small talks, they are actually masking. So
Mm.
we just shouldn't force them to do small talks. Just let them be. Because when I was at the autism event, because we organized an event and we were in this big restaurant, a long table sitting, and everyone was talking in wall of text. Like someone told a story, and then another person responded with a whole story, and we didn't have these small talks. We have these long talks, and yeah. So we shouldn't force small talks because we can learn them, but in a harmful way. So there's like many skills that you just can't learn because you are neurodivergent and your brain is different. So it's a um, really huge thing to let others know this. Just don't force autistic people. Another example is this disorder, or let's just call it a disorder. It's avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. It's a new thing actually in the diagnostic book, but it's basically about it usually comes with autism. So for example, my friend's brother only eats omelette and pizza, and that's all. And he's not picky, he just can't eat other things because he becomes physically sick. And this
Mm.
is the same for me. Like when I drink a tea and there's these little lemon things inside of the tea, my mom needs to pick them up and throw them away because I will vomit and be physically sick. And
Mm.
people just call me picky, but I'm not picky. I am physically unable to eat. and many parents force their autistic children to eat this, don't be picky, just eat this, and it's pretty harmful. So we shouldn't force neurodivergent people to do things which they can't do.
And to be honest, being a mom myself, it feels like pretty destructive to any kid to force them to eat, because this is how you develop all these disorders and all this.
Yeah,
When children don't believe in themselves, if you force something, it's giving the room and respect, exactly what you describe of being a teacher and listening. And especially I can think it's traumatic to autistic children, and when the
yeah,
only people you trust on earth, your parents, are those who are actually forcing you instead of supporting you, it must be pretty hard for a kid to manage that. uh,
yes, yes, and sadly, many parents cause traumas to their autistic children unintentionally, maybe because they just don't know that the child is autistic, and they can cause traumas. Luckily, I have a really supportive and strange family. That's why they didn't realize that I'm strange, because there's a chance that my father is also autistic, actually, and
mm,
that he has ADHD as well.
mm,
Uh, but so they didn't realize, because they let me be, just this is the way you are, it's okay. But there's many cases where the parents are not this supportive, and it's really sad, because I
mm.
see many autistic people with traumas caused by their family.
Yeah, I can imagine that it's a very sensitive period when you're totally in the power of your parents. And as I said, if with instead of support you get this negative reaction, they're forcing you or not understanding, it's a trauma which is difficult to get rid of as an adult. It's breaking. I can think pretty hard. And yeah, lucky then your family was also relieved. I can imagine when you got finally your diagnosis, that they also knew. Or what was their reaction?
Well, my father was like, "Ah, all right, this is it." He's a strange one, of course, but my mother, she was really shocked,
Oh.
because she felt so much guilt that she didn't realize it, and she should have realized it,
Mm,
and she should have done something, and she could have helped me a lot, and
mm,
she should have sent me to a psychologist, and she feels so much guilt,
oh,
and she's so sad, because she knows that in this world the majority is neurotypical people. So in this world, I will always be the disabled one. I will always suffer no matter what I do, because people will always hurt me. And
mm,
this makes her really sad. So it's still pretty hard for her to accept my diagnosis,
mm,
and yeah, so for her it's really hard, but my father is just like, all right, like I said to him that I talked to a psychiatrist, and she said that he might be autistic and HD and have ADHD as well, um, but
mm.
um, but he was just like, all right, it is what it is. I am just myself, and yes, so he won't be getting an official diagnosis, because he just doesn't care about it.
What felt for you more? What reaction, your mother's or your father's? You felt it closer to you, mother's all this worry and this unbelievable love, and or your father's chill love? What is easier for you as an autistic
Mm,
person to accept, like to closer to
actually,
your heart?
just neither. Like my reaction is the most important. That I'm happy and I feel relieved, and that's the most important. I try to cheer up my mother always, because she's my mother and I love her so much, and I just don't want her to be sad. And I try to see the bright side, however I understand her um, her sadness and why she is sad, and
Mhm.
yeah, and that's true what she says, but I try to tell her the brighter side. And yeah, so basically I'm just happy and relieved, and uh, my side is the is the better, like, yeah, it's better for me that my mother is more aware of my autism. My father is just like, oh, you are this way, it's okay, but he's not into this deep into my diagnosis, just accepts me. And yeah, but
Mhm.
of course we can have arguments, and for my mother I can more easier tell that I don't understand this because of my diagnosis, but my father is just like, oh, all right, yeah. So
Mm.
but it's okay, they are great people and they support me in every way of their own ways, but of course they have their flaws, and but they are great. And I couldn't survive uh, because if I didn't have this kind of family, I wouldn't survive in high school, because I needed their support. And
Mm.
yeah, so I really needed some support, and it was, for me, it was my family.
And I'm thinking, like, naturally, if everything is okay with parents' own upbringing and psychological conditions, so all parents want to support their children, and it's a natural drive. But the thing is that many parents don't understand how to deal with autistic children, for example. That's why you becoming a psychologist and helping, I can imagine, not only people with autism but also parents to chill, like, because parents, they need, I mean, you need to think differently, and you, exactly like employers we're talking about, but also parents just get some tools how to create a context for children to feel good, how to support them in the right way. So I can imagine, you know, which tools to, like, to give, and it's unbelievably important skill that you are, from you, would be an important present for parents, like with for children with autism. Is it something you are thinking to work with, or it's mostly people with autism?
I mostly want to work with adults with autism or ADHD, but mainly autistic adults.
uh,
Like, there's more and more people who works with children, but in my country, when it comes to adults, it's really poor. So I want to work with adults
okay,
specifically.
I see. Yeah, because, yeah, as a parent, I'm just thinking from the perspective of a parent. You do everything you want, but it's like you really need help, like what to do concretely, to not to harm but to support. And it's just came to my mind. But speaking about adults and speaking about workplaces, you described, like, uh, how different you are in many ways, but also you are a brilliant worker, you're a brilliant talent, you have all those skills, and you're a great teacher. And we talked before, and you told how much your students like you and how much they like your teaching style, and I'm sure you're influencing them for life in a good way. So um, for employers, what do you think is the most important, if you advise me as employer, to open up for people with autism? Because I really would not like to my employees to use this masking which you described. It feels
Yes,
very
yes.
exhausting. It's and so unnecessary. Like, if you don't want to talk about small talk, don't. I mean, it doesn't influence your delivery at your work, and this is what I need as employer. So apart from this, what would you give, what are your most important, like, advice to any business owner, HR, like, or people working with people, to create a safe space for autistic employees?
First of all, they need to do a silent room where people can just go and relax and be in silence, because we can be overstimulated from the noises and sounds and lights, because most autistic people have sensory issues, like we hear the sound louder and we see the lights brighter, and when there's this lots of noise around you, people talking, computers running, and cars are going everywhere, you just need a silent place. And my first suggestion is to make a room as a silent room. And the next advice is to invite autistic people or neurodivergent people to make a workshop where they talk about their neurodivergence and their experiences, or and invite like a professional, like a psychologist or a psychiatrist who actually knows about autism and ADHD and other hidden disabilities, and let them just teach about it. These two are the most important things, in my opinion.
Mm. But many people don't say they're autistic or have ADHD. I'm very happy when I'm, for example, hiring someone at interview or someone who works with me who says to me like, but I have ADHD. That's why for me, like this short deadline or this this so much pressure, or whatever they say, is not okay. I don't feel good with that. Or lack of routine, for example, is not normally ADHD. Employees say that I really want concrete deadlines with so I know in advance and it's structured. I don't like chaos and unexpected things. And
Yeah,
if
I,
it's
I
said to
feel
me,
that.
yeah, like that.
Yeah, it's kind of the same for me, but in a different way. And I would suggest to employers to say to their workers that they can talk to them freely and let them talk about their disabilities in private. So they don't need to come up with their disabilities in front of everyone. They just can speak about it with the two of them,
Mm.
and let the employer be open. So when someone is disabled, I can give you this and this and this opportunities. Just show me your papers in private. So maybe this can be helpful.
Mm.
So more people can be open.
But you know what, Nadine, what strikes me when I started to think about it, because it's not naturally in my head as I'm not autistic. So, but when I started to work, like I really want diverse team, not to miss talents like yourself. So, what strikes me when I organized my workplace for autistic employees, I actually made it so much easier for all other employees because what you say, silent room, structure, no stress, like deadlines, which are like well planned, it's actually very good for the whole team without exception. So by adapting to my autistic employees, I adapted to the whole workplace in so good way, and I got good feedback from people who are not autistic that it became
Yes,
so much
yes. I was the Autism Europe
better.
Congress, and there was this silent room, and I saw not autistic people going there, minding their business, just drinking a cup of coffee, and it was so great.
Yeah.
So everyone can benefit from these things, because neurotypical people can have problems as well, and they can be tired or have a bad day or can be sick or something.
So basically, that's true, and basically, if you adapt for people with neurodiversity, you adapt for your whole team only to the better. It cannot be worse because who doesn't like structure? Who doesn't like to have a little bit of moment for yourself in a silent room? and also to when it's to talking to with respect to each other, letting people like to tell when they are ready to tell things. I mean, it's for every person, but it's a special, it's for every person, it's nice, but they can survive in other environment, it's chaotic, but for autistic people it's a must, otherwise they are not
Yeah.
working there. This is the difference. But Nadine, how because for me it's easy as employer, when I already have people for example with ADHD in my team, and they have told me and I know and I have adapted, it's easy. But for me what I struggle is to in hiring people with autism, because especially this recruitment interview, they don't deliver in the same way as people without autism, because like it's more social, it's chit chat, how is your kid, how is your weather, blah blah blah. So you're like connect so easily, and autistic person doesn't have all of this, like oh, weather is nice, sun is good. But so they are normally in interviews they deliver socially less. So
Yeah.
how, what tips you give to employers to to deal with this situation, to let people in? This is more it's more difficult than if you already have. So what's your
I
advice?
gave them my CV actually, and they saw my great qualities. So it was not my speaking skills, but my CV, like the work I have there and the proof that I can be a great worker.
Ah,
Yeah, basically.
so it's basically what you do. You explain that you have autism and you show your CV.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
because
I'm autistic, but here is my CV. You can see my work. You can see I'm experienced, and
yeah,
yeah.
and
And if it's a
also
good, excuse me. So if it's a good employer, they will understand. If if it's not, then it's not worth going there, because you will have problems as an autistic.
mm, yeah, it's right. Yeah, because I'm thinking it's not only like because it's law says to you to open up for everyone, including people with autism, like neurodiverse employees. For me, like if you don't, you're losing so much, because for example you are teacher in your school, it's nobody better than you who would teach children who are also autistic, or children who need like another teaching style. So you are actually an asset which is a must in school in order to reach out to all students. So for me it's a matter of survival for any business. That's why I am asking. It's like for me the most difficult is to teach, when I come to employers, to teach them how to, the first hurdle, where to find and how to grab in this interview, how not to miss the talent. So this is the most difficult part actually, to make things happen.
Yeah.
Where to find people with employees with autism, how to how to put your net out there so you really catch them. Where is there like community you go to, like where to look for?
Actually, I don't know how to catch them. Like I see in the autistic group many people struggling with work and where to go to work, and it just happens if you are lucky. It's basically luck, sadly.
Oh,
So it's hard to find in both ways. It's hard to find for an employer to find autistic workers, and it's also hard to find autistic people jobs.
yeah.
It's just luck. You really need to be lucky to find the right place or the right person.
It's a pity because it's really a lose-lose.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's
Because like in the Silicon Valley in America, there's a bunch of autistic people working there.
yeah, but of course. But look at yourself, all your impressive CV. Who wouldn't want you in their team? But to it's like where to find talents like you and how to make them interested, and how, as I say, this first interview. It was once I interviewed. It was a girl who said actually she was autistic, and she said that's why she needed a friend who was also in interview with her. She needed support. And I
Yeah,
said, okay,
it's
let's
it's it's hard.
because she was not like very social, and she was like nervous and everything, so she needed someone, and it was fun. It was a good interview, and she matched with me and everything, but I was grateful, she said, because I was ready. I was prepared, warm up in my mind. Otherwise, maybe if you're not ready and you're not autistic yourself, you are just doing like business as usual. And that's where I think this is where the most failures happen, when it comes to attracting the autistic talent to but yeah, it's just to watch podcasts like this, and also to understand what autism is. And would you advise, in order, I mean, for employer to have this open mind, to
Yeah.
not to miss out? But do you have something concrete for employers, like advice, at maybe a book, or in something like to prepare yourself to be open minded, because you need to understand in order to be open minded? Is it something you can advise?
There's this new way of approaching autism. It's called neuroaffirmative way, or I don't know, we call it in Hungary, but it's just an affirmative way view on autism, and it's pretty fresh, and they can understand autism better. But I actually got some great book like Different Not Less. That's the title, and I haven't read it yet, but it looks great. So I would suggest to search for autistic authors and look through Instagram and TikTok, because basically there's like a bunch of autistic people telling
Mm,
their experiences. Though social media is nowadays more reliable than these old psychology books, because things have changed so much.
mm,
So I just recommend looking through social media, mostly TikTok and Instagram, and you can educate yourself pretty well, because these are not amateur experiences, they are real experiences, and many autistic psychologists talk about their experiences.
mm. I agree with you, Nadine, and it's for also, it's my advice, as we're talking about it, for diversity and inclusion experts, the people like myself who work and help companies like to become inclusive workplaces. Like, you cannot help companies if you don't understand yourself what you're talking about. That is why it's extremely important to hear from the first source, and to educate yourself, like to at least to understand like mentally what you are working with, in order to help employers to also open up, because it's a matter of knowledge. It's a lack of knowledge, or you know how to deal. It's a skill you develop. That's why I'm so grateful you are sharing it today, Nadine, because it's been extremely interesting to listen to you, how you experience everything, and also to show how brilliant you are. And it's like, you have, I think that in your case, that's why, it's neurodiversity is your superpower. And we
Thank you.
to be honest, because like all these talents you have in one person, it's really great. um I think we are reaching to the end of this discussion. Sadly, time goes quickly when you have fun.
Yeah.
And I can imagine you are exhausted, and me too,
Yes.
because it's a lot of information. So let us finalize this discussion by one last question. And we talked in advance. I told you we have a tradition that we finish always the podcast with a question from a previous speaker, because inclusion and diversity, it's a huge topic, and we have experts from different fields, but everything is interconnected, and we try to find this core, this juice in the topic, by letting our guests answer each other's questions. So I will not share who was the previous guest, but the question which they asked, and which will become your question, is like, what could be done differently? What do you wish could change? Exactly. What do you wish could change in your area?
I wish there would be more diagnostic places in my area, and I wish there would be more psychologists who could help for autistic people. And yeah, basically, I just and I wish the government would give more support to autistic people and disabled people all together. This is the main thing I would like to change, but mostly the diagnostic problem is huge. That's the most terrifying and the saddest.
Yeah, thank you, Nadine. It's really valuable. Thank you for your time and for your generous sharing of your experiences and also practical advices which can be implemented already now after listening to this podcast. It's not that difficult actually to be open-minded and inclusive employer if you if you think
Yeah.
about it.
Thank you so much for the podcast, and it was really great speaking to you. And I hope people will learn from my experience and they can see neurodivergency better, and they can understand that this is a hidden disability and it's like the same as like deafness or blindness. Even if you don't see it that way, it is hard and it can be very challenging.
Yeah, and very rewarding if you understand the code how to deal with it, how to create an inclusive workplace where autistic people can work.
Yes,
Because yeah, the results I've seen it also from my career working with people with autism and ADHD. It's totally different and it's really much richer results you get. That's really worth it to be inclusive. So thank you, Nadine. And if you who are listening or watching us, if you like what we do, our podcast, please share with your network so more employers can get these hands-on advices on how to become inclusive. So thank you for us and bye.
thank you everyone, bye.